Welcome to this lecture on human physiology. Today, we are going to explore the cardiac cycle, the literal engine of life that beats inside your chest every single second. We will understand how the heart functions as a highly advanced mechanical pump, ensuring that oxygen and nutrients reach every cell in your body. To begin our journey, think of the heart as a highly advanced mechanical water pump in a house. It doesn't just squeeze constantly, it has a very specific repeating rhythm. The cardiac cycle refers to the complete sequence of events from one heartbeat to the next. It consists of two main periods: systole, which is the contraction and emptying phase, and diastole, which is the relaxation and filling phase. During this cycle, blood is moved from areas of high pressure to areas of low pressure, regulated by one-way valves. If this cycle is disrupted, the entire body suffers immediately. Now that we understand the basic rhythm of systole and diastole, let us break down the cycle into its 5 distinct phases. The cycle begins with atrial systole. In this phase, the upper chambers of the heart, known as the atria, contract. Think of this as a final top-off squeeze. It pushes the last 20% of blood into the lower chambers, called the ventricles. During this time, the ventricles are completely relaxed, passively accepting the incoming blood. This crucial step ensures the ventricles are completely full and stretched before they begin their massive push, maximizing pumping efficiency. Following the top-off squeeze, we enter the second phase, called isovolumetric contraction. The ventricles begin to contract forcefully, causing the pressure inside them to spike instantly. This sudden high pressure slams the atrioventricular valves shut, creating the first heart sound you hear in a stethoscope, known as the lub. Because all the valves in the heart are momentarily closed, the volume of blood inside the ventricle cannot change. This is exactly why we call it isovolumetric. The heart muscle is building up immense tension during this split second, preparing for the explosive release of blood into the body. With immense tension built up, the heart is ready for the third phase, ventricular ejection. As ventricular pressure continues to rise, it eventually overcomes the pressure in the aorta and pulmonary artery. This immense pressure forces the semilunar valves open, and blood is violently ejected out of the heart and into the body. This is the main pumping phase of the heart that does the heavy lifting. The blood rushes into the arteries, creating the pulse you can easily feel in your wrist or neck. Note that a small amount of blood always remains behind after this powerful squeeze. After ejecting the blood, the heart must recover, bringing us to the fourth phase, isovolumetric relaxation. The ventricles begin to relax, and their internal pressure drops rapidly. Because of this pressure drop, blood in the aorta tries to flow backward into the heart. This backward flow catches the cup-like semilunar valves and snaps them shut, creating the second heart sound, known as the dub. Once again, all valves are closed, and the ventricles relax without changing their internal volume. This brief moment of total closure is crucial for maintaining the forward momentum of blood throughout your body. Finally, as the ventricles continue to relax, we reach the fifth phase, ventricular filling. When the ventricular pressure drops below the pressure in the atria, the atrioventricular valves open again. Blood that has been quietly pooling in the atria rushes down into the ventricles completely passively. This passive flow fills about 80% of the ventricles before the cycle even requires a muscle contraction. The heart actually spends most of its time in this relaxed filling phase, which is vital because the heart muscle receives its own blood supply only during relaxation. After this, the entire cycle repeats. Now that we have walked through the 5 phases, let us look at how they all connect visually using the Wigger's diagram. This graph aligns all the mechanical and electrical events of the cardiac cycle over time. On the horizontal axis, we have time in seconds. The top curves show pressure changes. Notice the blue line representing ventricular pressure. See how it spikes dramatically during isovolumetric contraction and ejection? The red line shows aortic pressure, and where they cross, valves open and close. Below that, the purple line tracks ventricular volume, dropping sharply as blood is ejected and rising during passive filling. Finally, at the bottom, we see the electrical ECG signals and the phonocardiogram marking the lub and dub sounds. This diagram beautifully orchestrates the entire cycle. Having seen the mechanics of a single heartbeat, we must now ask, how do we measure the overall effectiveness of this cycle? To truly understand the heart's performance, we use a fundamental concept called cardiac output. Cardiac output quantifies the actual work the heart is doing over time. It is defined as the total volume of blood pumped by the heart in one single minute. This output depends entirely on 2 crucial factors: how fast the heart is beating and how much blood is pushed out with each individual beat. By understanding this relationship, doctors can predict exactly how the heart will behave under physical stress or during an illness. This brings us to the mathematical representation of the heart's work. The formula is CO equals HR times SV. Conceptually, this tells us that the total blood pumped is simply the size of one pump multiplied by the speed of pumping. Let us define each symbol. CO stands for cardiac output, measured in milliliters per minute. HR is the heart rate, which is the number of beats per minute. Finally, SV is the stroke volume, representing the volume of blood ejected per beat, measured in milliliters. If either the heart rate increases or the stroke volume increases, the overall cardiac output will rise accordingly to meet the body's demands. Now that we have our formula, let us apply it to a basic clinical example. Imagine a healthy patient resting comfortably. We are given a resting heart rate of 75 beats per minute, and an ultrasound shows a stroke volume of 70 milliliters per beat. We are asked to calculate their total cardiac output. We choose our standard formula, CO equals HR times SV, because it directly links these variables. We substitute 75 for the heart rate and 70 for the stroke volume. Multiplying these gives us a final answer of 5,250 milliliters per minute, or 5.25 liters per minute. Physically, this means that in just 1 minute at rest, the heart pumps roughly the entire blood volume of an average adult human body. Let us look at a slightly more complex, real-world scenario using the same formula. A trauma patient has lost blood, causing their stroke volume to drop dangerously low to 50 milliliters per beat. However, their vital organs still require a normal cardiac output of 5,000 milliliters per minute. We need to find the new heart rate required to maintain this flow. We start with our standard equation, but this time we rearrange it using basic algebra to isolate heart rate, dividing cardiac output by stroke volume. Substituting 5,000 for CO and 50 for SV, we divide to get a final answer of 100 beats per minute. Physically, this explains why bleeding patients develop a rapid pulse or tachycardia. The heart beats faster to compensate for the smaller stroke volume.
We have now covered the full scope of the cardiac cycle. Let us review the key takeaways. First, the heart is a beautifully orchestrated pump that alternates seamlessly between diastole for filling and systole for pumping. Second, the precise opening and closing of valves ensure that blood always flows in one direction, driven by pressure changes. Finally, we learned that cardiac output, the product of heart rate and stroke volume, is the ultimate measure of the heart's performance. You have seen how the heart dynamically adapts these variables to sustain life, even in emergencies. Mastering this concept provides the absolute foundation for understanding all of cardiovascular physiology. Excellent work today.